Just finishing up the dancing kilt, and once again, it was like, hey, take a look at this. The This is interesting because it provided me with a number of unique challenges. There's me being Mr. Positive. Um, One of them being that because she'd had this kilt when she was very young. She's grown up. She came to me initially. Can you actually make this fit? So, as we saw from the previous videos, I robbed a pleat. Yeah, so I had her back for a couple of fittings, and today was the final fitting. And there was a couple of things I've had to do differently because the person who sewed this was a remarkable craftsperson. Silk thread, beautifully done, very close stitching. But I believe this person's from the tailoring or the dressmaking background. Pardon me, because the seam allowances are very narrow where they've sewn. I can't really show them here, but they're very narrow. So when I robbed the pleat, and then the time came to put in the buttonhole to pass the strap through, there simply wasn't material. There wasn't enough material to make that fold back that you've seen. And I'm using every scrap of this thing. There's no offcuts to fabricate something, right? So what I fell back upon is a system that I've seen elsewhere, and I've used it a couple of times, in that we reverse, on the left hip, we reverse the usual operation. So rather than a strap here and a buckle there on the outside, now we have a buckle here, and a strap's going to go on the inside. Now, I had done that in the past for a while, for like a few seasons, but then I stopped doing it because I noticed when people were bringing them back for alterations and stuff, that when they were wearing the kilt, there was a decided pucker where the butt end of the strap was taking the tension and communicating it to the canvas, but it was also pulling the cloth in a bit. So I told her this, and she says it doesn't matter. She's dancing. She's going to be wearing a jacket and possibly a waistcoat, a vest also. So that little dimple doesn't matter to her. The second complication, the challenge came because I very rarely tailor for women. I've had less than, let's say, less than 10 in almost over 40 years. So I don't have the expertise and the hacks and everything else. And because, as I've covered elsewhere, the female figure is different. We have to tailor it for it differently. Hers is a significant case because I couldn't tailor the top of the kilt in without having gaps at the front, not across the back, but at the front. So what we did while she was wearing it, and it's always easier to tailor to the person when the person's standing there wearing the garment, I just sort of did a pinch and put a pin in it, and that flattened it out lovely, perfectly. And so when I was done, I measured that pinch, and it was exactly an inch. So I changed from a single dart. I split the difference, so 2 half-inch darts either side of the center. Now I haven't pressed them yet, and in male traditional kilt making, this is a huge no-no, but this isn't a typical case, right? The next part, because as I mentioned, the very thin seam allowance, when I was sewing in the canvas, as careful as I could be, the needle was coming through to the outside, and I was as careful as I could be, even to matching the thread color to minimize the visual impact on the outside. And I showed this to her because I'm not happy about it. See, if I'm sewing the inside of an apron, the canvas to the apron, I can do a prick stitch. I can do a stitch where and I'm just going to reach for one right now, where here we are on this inside apron. Now it's kind of hard to see because it's black on black. You can see that neatly done, but I actually sewed from this side, and you can see the tiny little dimples. There's barely any thread visible, and when it presses, or when I give this a good iron, the nap's going to come up a bit, and it's going to be very hard to see. With luck, we won't see any tiny little nubs of thread where it's passed through. That worked in that case, and that's becoming a regular thing of mine because it allows me to do a more secure attachment. But I can't do it here because I have to radius this, right? So I showed this to her and I said, I'm really sorry, but despite my best efforts, because of I'm slightly unfamiliar with the material, it's a bit thinner, plus the minimum seam allowance, there's not a lot of thickness here. And I pointed these out and I says, I'm really sorry, and I'm still thinking about what to do. And she says, it's okay, I'm going to be wearing a coat, which is very, very good of her, very forgiving of her, but I still don't like it. So I've been working on this all day. She was here at 10. I've been working 7 hours now on this thing. So I can have it ready at end of day. One of the reasons why I'm doing this video is she asked for a black lining. So black thread on black cloth is really doing my eyes in. It's pulling my eyes out of my head. So we took a little bit of a break just to do this vid. So what I think I'm going to do now that this is attached, right? She's going to take this away, I think tomorrow, for an event the next day. And I'm going to say, look, wear it, see how everything works, because bespoke is forever, right? And come back to me with feedback, because I want her to bring this back to me, because now that this canvas is attached, now I can do that same prick stitch that I just showed you here, where I will wind up with a back that's free of these annoying stitches that have come through despite my best efforts. As you can see here, because I had done the trial fitting with her without the lining in, and I temporarily sewed it right there. That's where it's going to go. But the lining's got to go on, of course. So I just did a back stitch with buttonhole silk, black buttonhole silk, to show me exactly where to orient the back end of the strap. The last item, of course, is that because we're expanding this kilt, enlarging this kilt, the top band is now not long enough. So, and that's very interesting, because this cloth is so movable that even though this is the original top band, it still doesn't quite line up with the other cloth, because it's been pulled at some point. Now, of course, because the kilt's bigger, the top band only came to here. And as you can imagine, I didn't have a matching piece of cloth in my many Tupperware tubs of offcuts in the back shop. So what I finally had to resort to is a piece of lining. Now again, that's not going to matter in the finish when she's wearing the thing, because the outer line will be over top. So there we go. I'm going to just give these a bit of a press, the ends. I don't think I'm going to press this side of the apron yet. I want to see how it hangs on her. And then if she's not in a hurry, right then, as it's hanging on her, I will baste it into its finished shape and then give it a press while she's waiting. Otherwise, if that won't work, I'll say, take it away, wear it a few occasions, and see what the cloth wants to do, so to speak. So there we are. So the last, now you can see, remember how I mentioned how we robbed that pleat and we resulted with, a cutout. So this cutout is visible now. The thing is, this lining has been through sewn to both layers here, so that when the last part of the lining goes in, it's going to be somewhat unconventional shape. As you can see, this isn't finished. It'll be radius to the bottom, a slightly unconventional shape, but this was exactly the amount of cloth I had left. She asked for black. This was exactly, we're wasting tiny little fragments. There's not much waste at all. So that will cover that unsightly bit. And there it is. So I hope she'll be very happy with it. It's been interesting. It's been a challenge. I hope I don't see too many more of these things. Anyhow, thank you.